Welcome back to CIA Declassified. We are now entering the most volatile chapter in the history of psychic intelligence. We've spoken about viewers, those who see the target. There's more of those to come. Ted Owens, however, was different. He was the only person officially investigated by the DIA who claimed the ability not just to perceive targets, but to physically change them using pure mental force. He was the self-proclaimed PK man, claiming psychokinesis over machines, weather, and even the biological functions of living things. His entry into the file room was marked by chaos, arrogance, and genuine, terrifying power. Owens was a profound anomaly. He was not a disciplined military man like McMonagall, nor a structured visionary like Swan. He was an unstable, eccentric figure who frequently claimed his abilities were channeled through what he called saucer intelligence, extraterrestrial beings he claimed were guiding his destructive capabilities. This required the intelligence community to navigate a nearly impossible challenge. How do you utilize a nuclear-level psychic capability attached to an unreliable, paranoid, and self-aggrandizing personality? The proposition. Owens sought out the military, not the other way around. He presented his power as a weapon, offering a demonstration. Give him a target and he would break it. The files from 1980 detail the DIA's agonizing internal debate. Should they touch this? The prevailing argument, driven by fear of Soviet advances, was that they could not afford not to. This saucer intelligence was not a vague concept to Owens. He detailed the source to his handlers with stunning precision, often derailing intelligence briefings with technical breakdowns of their assistants. According to his operational logs, his PK ability was being amplified and guided by two extraterrestrial entities, allegedly one male, one female, who lived permanently in an invisible spaceship positioned above the North Pole. Owens claimed this ship acted as a psychic amplifier, focusing global energy streams into his mind and ensuring his PK events were successful. The intelligence community, despite classifying him as a threat, was forced to document these claims, leading to an extensive and heavily redacted section of the file focused purely on the plausibility of the North Pole entities. Owens' initial tests focused on weather manipulation. He claimed to create localized rainstorms or lightning strikes on command, while anecdotal, multiple field reports noted bizarre sudden weather events corresponding precisely to his stated targets, but his true focus was psychokinesis over technology. The claims, Owens claimed he could short-circuit power grids, stall cars, or jam complex radio transmissions, but he was impatient. He grew frustrated with the slow pace of scientific verification. He felt the intelligence community did not respect his power, and in the world of Ted Owens, disrespect meant destruction. He decided to provide his own proof, forcing the issue into the high-priority risk category. We now turn to this critical file, one that ended all debates about control. DIA Owens 005 Infrastructure Failure Report. This incident centers around a highly sensitive experimental infrared mapping array being tested at a secure site in Nevada. Owens had been denied access to the array, citing security concerns and his unstable profile. His response was immediate and catastrophic. The session. Owens began a documented session focused on the target site. His viewing notes were chaotic, filled with violent intent, imagery of exploding energy, and symbols of technological rupture. Within 48 hours, the sophisticated infrared array, housed in a hardened, protected bunker, suffered a catastrophic, unrecoverable systems failure. Engineering analysis could not determine the cause, noting only an inexplicable, massive energy surge that melted the internal wiring. The intelligence community realized he wasn't just a viewer. He was an untargeted, destructive force. The consequences of the infrared incident were immediate. The DIA officially classified Owens as a level Omega threat, meaning the risk of utilizing him equaled or exceeded the risk of facing the Soviet enemy. He was an asset that could destroy the very infrastructure he was meant to protect. The situation was so dire that the CIA stepped in to conduct their own assessment. This assessment remains one of the most chilling declassified documents that we possess. This is the quoted assessment in the file CIA RDP 96. 00788R 0017 002 00001-4. The final assessment reads, and I quote, "The individual demonstrates with high probability an ability to influence specific localized meteorological and technological infrastructure targets. The risk profile associated with engaging or attempting to neutralize subject Owens must remain at level omega, given the documented retaliatory destruction of redacted equipment on November 17th, 1982. The date referenced," that's the end of the quote, "November 17th, 1982 marks the specific incident where he allegedly caused retaliatory damage against the intelligence community itself, destroying their own highly sensitive monitoring equipment simply because they attempted to cut off his access." The mandate shifted entirely from utilization to containment. Owens could not be imprisoned, as the belief was that his fury would only intensify and lead to uncontrolled widespread damage. Instead, the focus was on a delicate form of psychological management. The strategy: handlers were assigned not to direct missions, but to manage his paranoia, keeping him occupied and convinced that he was still a vital part of the program, thus preventing him from turning his power against American infrastructure out of spite. He was the one asset the U.S. intelligence community actively paid not to work. This was the embodiment of the program's greatest fear. The true psychic ability could never be harnessed or controlled by the state, but would always remain a chaotic, destructive force. In January 1986, Owens' volatile energy seemed to shift from targeted destruction to terrifying, unwanted prophecy. Parapsychologist Jeffrey Mishlove later detailed Owens' increasingly frantic attempts to warn people about an impending disaster at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Owens was allegedly inundated by psychic data, seeing images of fire, ice, and catastrophic failures centered on the space shuttle. He called Jeffrey Mishlove and other associates, begging for help to relay the urgent message to NASA, warning that if the launch proceeded on January 28th, the shuttle would be destroyed and the crew would perish. The warnings were dismissed as the ravings of a known eccentric, the PK man. When the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded just 73 seconds after liftoff, the incident was taken by many involved in the psychic community, including Owens himself, as the final tragic confirmation of his raw, untargeted power. A disaster he could foresee but was powerless to prevent, a psychic failure that cost 7 lives. Ted Owens left behind a legacy of fear and destruction. He proved that the human mind, untethered and hostile, could be a true kinetic weapon. After the Challenger incident, his public relevance diminished rapidly. The intelligence community had effectively neutralized him by ignoring him. He retreated into further isolation, consumed by the same uncontrollable power he had so desperately sought to wield. In 1987, Ted Owens, the man who claimed to control the weather and break machines with his mind, died alone and impoverished in a basement apartment in New York City. The DIA's level omega threat was ultimately silenced not by force, but by a combination of official negligence and the sad, isolating reality of a life lived in the chaotic edge of human potential. He was simply too dangerous to keep and too dangerous to let go. Ted Owens, the PK man, remains a dark legend in the declassified files, a terrifying anomaly of pure, unstable power. Next time, we turn from the wild volatility of the PK man to the grounded, almost mundane reality of the librarian of sight, Hella Hamid. Hella was an operational viewer whose power was not in explosive hits, but in the relentless, methodical tracking of Soviet strategic targets. We open the file DIAHLAH 003, the Siberian Missile Defense Complex, detailing how her quiet, detailed work over a 2-year period exposed an entirely new network of Siberian missile silos the U.S. had previously failed to locate. She was the one who proved that persistence and precision trumped raw power every time. In the meantime, stay sharp, watch your thoughts, and try to make sure no one is looking back. I'll see you in the archives.